Welcome to the August meeting of the State Board of Elections. We have a quorum. We have 4 members. So we have a quorum to begin the meeting. And I'd like to ask, under additions to the agenda, just a brief statement I want to make. And then we have one other addition. I mentioned it last time in our emergency meeting, but I just wanted to get on the record again and say how much this board appreciates the work that Malcolm Funn has done for elections and for the citizens, and how good of a friend he was to many. I counted him among my good friends, and we had the opportunity. His family allowed us had asked us to send a statement down at his memorial service, which we did on behalf of the board, and I also sent one personally as Malcolm, my friend, and I will say that he will be very hard to replace. His wisdom and his work ethic, and I know we're all saddened at his loss, but we're just appreciative of the work that he did. So thank you to that. And then I believe Linda has a statement to make under additions to the agenda.
Thank you, Bill. I would like to recognize the election officials across the state of Maryland for successfully administering this election. It certainly had its challenges. The dates kept getting changed. Everyone had a very, very short period of time to implement redistricting. And we returned to a normal election, but with significant increased amount of mail-in ballots. As we know, all elections require a tremendous amount of work, but this one was even more. The local boards of elections and the staff at the State Board of Elections stepped up to the plate, and we had a successful election. And I would just want to give my public thanks to all of them for just really doing a job well done and getting it done. And happy to say that the board is going to certify the election today. Thank you again, everybody. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you. And then I know the board would also give their appreciation for everything that all of the election professionals did across the state. We would mirror what the state administrator just said and thank everybody for their work. I know it's tireless and many times it's thankless, and we appreciate you. So we are going to move to the approval of the minutes for the open and closed meetings on the 23rd and 28th. Those were sent to all the board members. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, the board would entertain a motion to approve both the open and closed meetings from the 23rd and the 28th.
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second? It's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. We need 4 of our 4 votes. I lost Sky. So I have everybody but Sky. I could not. I lost her video feed. Sky, you may also post in the chat, and then I will explain some of the challenges Sky is having. But you could also post that in the chat so that we could see it. While we're waiting for Sky's connection, we will be moving, with the board's approval, we'll be moving the agenda around a little bit in our meeting today. We need 4 people for quorum. We only have 4 members at this point. And, Sky Woodward is away. She is in Austria right now and having some challenges with her connection. And so we will be moving the agenda around a little bit to allow for those things that require the quorum for vote to put at the front of this meeting. And then at the back of the meeting, we will move to our administrator's report and Assistant Attorney General's report. I'm just wondering, Sky, if you can either turn your panel on or post in the chat. I still see her in the attendee list as a panelist. I have now messaged her as well. Fortunately, we cannot move on in our meeting without a quorum for the voting parts. So I am trying to there we go. Sky, did you vote affirmatively for the approval of the minutes? You can raise your hand. Great. So the minutes are approved, and we're going to move on to, we're going to bypass, again, the administrator's report. We will come back to them, and the Assistant Attorney General's report. We're going to move to the certification of the July 19th, 2022 primary election results for state filed candidates. And I believe, Nikki, you are taking control of that. Is that correct?
Well, I will start and then I'll turn it over to Donna.
Okay.
So just wanted to highlight one paragraph from the administrator's report that is relevant for your consideration before certification. After every primary election, we perform what's called an automated ballot tabulation audit. And I'm happy to say that that is complete. And what that audit showed is that the voting system counted the votes accurately. And we know that because the digital images that we sent off to a third party, that company tabulated all of those. And then we sent them the precinct level results. And they reviewed the two sets of results to identify whether there were any discrepancies. Our regulations say that any discrepancies, any differences greater than 0.5% trigger a subsequent audit, and we don't have any of those. We do have the reports from election day and early voting posted on our website for anybody to review, and the full set, which would include all of mail-in ballots and provisional ballots, that is complete. But we just haven't posted those reports yet. But they just came in, I think, last Friday. So we have all of those, but just thought that would be a piece of information for you all to know before you certify the results of the election.
Great. Thank you. Donna?
We've provided you the full set of state filed candidate election results. They are exactly what you see on our website. They are broken down by canvas, early voting, election day, early mail-in ballot 1, provisional, and mail-in ballot 2. They're broken down further. The numbers are exactly the same, and we will, as soon as you authorize this, we will change them from unofficial to official. We will run the general election candidate list, which will list the winners, and each will be posted on our website.
Great.
There is a signature page for each of you to sign and scan back to me. I will take your vote for now and place your signature for posterity purposes. So.
Are there any questions that the board has? My only question is one of verification, Donna, and I know the answer. I just would like to have it on the record that all the counties have already certified their results that have come up to the state board. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Great.
We have all results have been signed by the local boards of elections and
Great.
sent to us.
So the chair would entertain a motion to accept the certification of the July 19 results as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. It unanimously passes. The primary election results are certified. We move on now to the approval of proposed regulations, Comar 33.11.04.04, absentee ballots, canvass, holdback of ballots. This would be coming to us both as emergent and regular regulation changes.
Thank you. So I'll be presenting these. The requirement to hold back ballots was based on the need to preserve the secrecy of mail-in ballots. And it's been around for a long time, but as our number of mail-in ballots has grown, it's becoming less and less needed. And right now, the local boards in the primary, they had to withhold 5 of every ballot style, which was 5 Democratic ballots, 5 Republican ballots, and 5 nonpartisan for every precinct. And it was a very large number of ballots. And again, because we are receiving, or the local boards are receiving more than 5 from every precinct anyway, that this requirement is sort of, it's no longer necessary. So the proposed changes would be to remove the requirement to hold back 5 of each ballot style of mail-in ballots, but it would maintain the requirement to withhold 5 back for the provisional canvass. What this was in essence doing was 5 of each for the provisional canvass and 5 of each for the second mail-in canvass. And now it would just be 5 for provisional, because our numbers of provisionals are just not as high. And so we want to continue. We think there's still a need for that. I did send these proposed changes to the Maryland Association of Election Officials Regulation Committee, and they took a look at them and didn't have any comments. So I present them for, as the chairman said, for both emergency approval, so we can be sure they're in effect for the general election, as well as the regular process.
Great. Are there any questions from the board? Pretty straightforward request. Is there a motion to accept the changes to Title 33.11.04.04 for both emergent and regular change?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. It is unanimous. So those are passed. We move on to the Title 13 waiver requests.
Oh, thank you. Title 13, there's a lot of waiver requests here for this package here. So in front of you is waiver requests to grant or to reduce for 46 committees. They're all listed in front of you, and for your knowledge, just that 4 were denied. There's no action on the denials by the board, but just on the 46th with the recommendations for the waivers on those. I'll be happy to answer any questions about the 46, but I just present to them as a block to you for approval. Thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions about the 46 approvals of Title 13 late fee waivers? Seeing none, the board would entertain a motion to accept and grant the waivers, 46 separate waivers of the Title 13 request as presented.
So moved.
And moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Great. Unanimous. Title 13 waiver requests approved. We move on to Title 14 waiver requests.
Title 14 it was basically just, there were 3 requests and they were just in your package here. They were all denied.
Great. So no action necessary for denial.
No action necessary on this. Thank you.
The board have any questions about these Title 14 waiver requests? Seeing none, what I'd like to do now, the board, we going to look for a motion to move into closed session for legal advice. I'm going to present that now. We will be coming back after closed session. We have several speakers as well that will be handled under new business, and we will deal with all of that at that time. So we still have old business, new business, and the reports from the administrator and the assistant attorney general, but we're looking to have the closed meeting at this time in our meeting, and then we will come back to the open meeting for new business. So the board will now consider whether to meet in closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice and obtain information from staff about pending or potential litigation as permitted by section 3-305B 7 and 8 of the general provisions article. Meeting in closed session would allow the members of the board to seek and obtain legal advice with board counsel without waiver of the attorney-client privilege and obtain information from staff about pending or potential litigation. May I have a motion to meet in closed session?
So moved.
Been
Second.
moved. Second. There's a moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Unanimous. The motion having passed, the board will meet in closed session in accordance with the exemption B 7 and 8 of section 3-305 of the Open Meetings Act. And again, we will be returning right after our closed session, so stay tuned in. I don't anticipate it will be a long closed session. And I'm not that if there's a lot of questions, so we will be right away. So let's not have a delay in essence. So we'll meet right away in closed session. we have said.
I think I'm here.
You're here. Your cheery face is here. Okay, we can unmute at any time.
Good to go.
Okay, thank you for those that are waiting and have waited. We are back and closed session is over, and we are now moving into old business, and the piece of old business is the early canvas that was tabled from the last meeting. And we will begin discussion about the issue about potentially early canvas of the general election 2022. Is there anybody would like to make any comments to that effect?
Oh, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, we just follow up on our thoughts from old business, just noting the issues even with the primary election that we've had due to the election law articles prohibition on allowing the opening of mail-in envelopes prior to 8 a.m. the Wednesday after Election Day, and the extra number of mail-in ballots. The issue could be worse for the general election, given the timeline for election results to be certified for candidates like Congress to take office. And there could be an issue if under the same path, if the timing is the same for the primary election, it could be until Christmas or New Year's that we get the results from the election. So I think, yeah, I agree that we should take action to allow an earlier canvass and tabulation of mail-in ballots.
Great. Any other comments from any other board members? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would concur with Mr. Williams. And I think that this is a prudential step that we're taking. I think that it is circumscribed in terms of what we can do on our own authority. And I think the appropriate avenue here is to seek judicial relief in a circuit court to allow the counting of mail-in ballots before Election Day so that we can get ahead of the curve, and to simply not release those results until after Election Day is completed. And I think that a court is the right place to go. I think Circuit Court in the state of Maryland obviously is the right place to go. So I agree with Mr. Williams.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, the chair would look for a motion to permit counsel for the State Board of Election to seek emergency relief from a circuit court permitting the early canvassing and tabulation of mail-in ballots, but not the release of any results prior to the closing of polls on Election Day.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous, and so Mr. Corbin, and away we go. Thank you. Thank you very much. So is there any other old business? Somebody's on, has their speaker on.
Mute Sky.
Great, thanks. So is there any other old business? Seeing none, we're going to move to new business. We're going to begin with some Montgomery County changes for the general election. Who will be handling that from staff?
Hi, this is Donna Duncan. I presented information to you that's been sent from Allison McLaughlin, the acting director of the Montgomery County Board. She is on the line and available to speak to you regarding these changes. I believe most of them are changes to polling places, Election Day polling places that had to be changed for the primary with the change of the date, and now they're going back to their original polling sites. But I will let Allison give you details. David, if you could allow Allison.
Yes, Donna, that is correct. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
Okay, great. We had, when the primary was originally scheduled in June, we had some construction in our schools that had been scheduled for July. And that forced us to need to leave our accustomed polling places for the primary, and we want to go back for the general.
So I'm seeing 11 locations. Does that sound correct?
That's correct, yes.
Anybody from the board have any questions about the 11 moves back to their original location? Isn't that correct? So you had to move on those 11 locations due to construction, and you're looking to go back to the primary locations that you had used before.
That is correct.
Okay, great. Anybody on the board have any questions about these 11 changes for the general election? I had just one. So you all have a plan in case somebody tried to go to the moved location on election day, that they would be informed where they're supposed to be?
Yes, we'll put up signage. Actually, only 4 of these are straight moves. The rest we had consolidated temporarily, and so there will be the other part of the consolidated polling place will still be voting there. So we'll communicate that. We'll put up signage.
Great. Anybody on the board have any other questions about the polling place? Seeing none, Chair would entertain a motion to accept the polling place changes from Montgomery County as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Just waiting for Sky's internet to respond. There we go. Fantastic. So we have a unanimous, and it's done. Thank you very much, and thank you for all your work for the elections. Okay. Are there any other new business prior to getting to the speakers? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to, I believe, Senator Kagan is our first speaker. Is that correct?
I am here. I don't know if you can see me or hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, I am here on camera if you want me to be or not. I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville and the vice chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, which oversees all election law. Before I start, I just want to recognize and join you in grieving the passing of Malcolm Funn. He was a collaborative partner and always willing to sort of talk through some of my legislative concerns and initiatives, and a really good guy. So sending condolences to you all as his friends and colleagues, and to his friends and family. I also want to join you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Lamone, and others in just thanking our local boards of elections, our board members, and the staff. Really just put in insane numbers of hours over the last many, many months to make sure that democracy flourished and functioned effectively and accurately. And so I just really want to give a shout out to them. Obviously, the veto of my bill, Senate Bill 163, caused a big problem in the delays, and it was unfortunate and avoidable, but really big kudos to the 4 of you for just voting unanimously to bring a legal initiative, and we will hope that that will be approved by the circuit court, and we can make sure that votes are counted in a timely manner. And the last thing that I want to mention is about transparency. Delegate Mark Corman and I have passed a number of bills, enacted laws over the years that date back to 2019 and they affected the State Board of Election in 2019, 2020, another one this year. And it's really disappointing and frustrating that these are still not being observed by this agency. Virtually every agency and department in the state is covered now, and it requires that materials and agendas must be posted at least 48 hours in advance, that must be live streamed, and then after minutes are approved, that they're posted. This is in times of COVID. Obviously, this was critically important for people to feel connected to their government, but now after the fact, and especially with cynicism, doubts, and theories, conspiracy theorists opining about the sanctity of Maryland's elections or American elections, transparency is vitally important. And I bring that up because this morning, we have a screenshot, 2 hours before the meeting, today's meeting, 2 hours, not 2 days, 2 hours before the meeting, the agenda and the meeting materials were still not posted on the SBE website. I tweeted about it. An hour later, they still weren't up. So if it was an oversight and someone dropped the ball or they were too busy, they still had the opportunity to fix it, and it still was not done. It is not okay. And what was posted was 302 pages of materials, all mushed together in one PDF document. I think that's unfair, unreasonable for any reporter, any civic activist, any organization, or any voter to try to review and synthesize 302 pages in less than an hour in order to understand and participate or cover a really important meeting, as frankly, virtually all of your meetings are. So I am going to implore you publicly. I have done it before through social media or privately. I decided to come on to just ask you, Ms. Lamone, Ms. Charlson, it is your responsibility and it is the law of the state of Maryland that you all be more transparent. And I beg you to please comply with the law so that Delegate Corman and I and others do not have to take action. And Mr. Coburn, welcome aboard. I look forward to meeting you in person and talking to you further about this if you like. I've already talked to your colleague, Sandy Brantley, and others, and I just think the Attorney General, the Open Meetings Compliance Board, and good government advocates must expect better from this agency. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Senator Kagan. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing nothing, Senator Kagan, I appreciate our friendship and working together, and it is something that I will also look at. I'm sure it was an oversight with all the amazing amount of things happening during the election. It is something that we will keep our eye on, and we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I also appreciate your accessibility, your thoughtfulness, and your collaboration. If this were the first time, I might be willing to believe that it's an oversight. It's not the first time. So I'm hoping for something better going forward and encourage the board members to stay vigilant on this. Thank you. I'll go back to mute.
Great. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe now we have 3 speakers on the same issue. I can't remember how they, in which order that they came in. And honestly, I don't have my document in front of me with each of their names. So if as you make them live to speak, if you would please introduce yourself first, and you'll have about 3 or 4 minutes to present your what you'd like to speak about, and then we would open up if there's any questions from the board. Who's our first speaker?
Since I'm unmuted, shall I begin?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to speak. My name is Peter Richkus, and thank you to the board and MSBE staff for your service on behalf of all Marylanders. Your work has become the center of much public dialogue, only adding to the complications and logistics to be managed assure safe and secure elections. Having observed much of Baltimore County's primary canvass last month, I want to give Rui Lavoie and her team a special shout out for their great work. And I want to add my sincere condolences on the recent passing of Board of Elections Vice Chair Fun. As his obituary detailed, he clearly lived a fully involved life and will be missed by many. For the record, my name is Peter Richkus, and I'm a registered Baltimore County voter. In addition to 20+ years in the private sector, I served as Secretary of General Services in the second Glendenning administration, for 6.5 years as a Port Commissioner during the O'Malley administration, and most recently as a member of the Baltimore County Blue Ribbon Procurement Reform Commission established by County Executive Olszewski. I also represented Maryland to President Obama's U.S. Trade Representative's Office from 2010 to 2014. I'm here today as a co-administrator of Indivisible Towson, a nonpartisan grassroots organization of over 600 members from throughout Baltimore County, and a member of the Vote for More coalition. Indivisible Towson joined the For More ballot question initiative because we believe expanding the council will expand opportunities for representation and participation in county government. We believe that what worked in 1955, when each council person represented 50,000 people, does not work today, now that our 7 districts have almost tripled in population, and since our sister counties of Prince George's and Montgomery have both recently expanded their number of districts. In working on the Vote for More ballot petition, using the process stipulated by this board, coalition members ran headlong into requirements from those, quote, before times before COVID, that have bewildered and frustrated many of us, especially when recent history has proven that it doesn't have to be this way. Thanks to this board's actions and technology advances, collection of electronic signatures during the 2020 election cycle proved very successful. Yes, the pandemic prompted those actions, but the technology was there to enable the election's secure results. Thus, I and other coalition members have been very puzzled by the board's resistance to electronic signatures for ballot petitions. For all aspects of the election process, your efforts and a variety of laws passed over the last decade have been to make it more, not less accessible, more, not less user-friendly, and as required by state election law, to, quote, maximize the use of technology in election administration. I must tell you, the before times requirements of burning shoe leather and using antiquated paper processes discriminated against many who were willing to be petition circulators, but could not due to age-related or other disabilities. Many in those communities feel offended and discriminated against by such language and those requirements, even though I'm confident that none was intended. Especially so since we have all experienced electronic alternatives. These before times requirements also discriminate against potential signers, even if they are healthy, but particularly if they are immunocompromised, given current public health risks. Today's COVID positivity rates are sobering. Today, the Ides of August, the positivity rate is 17% in the US, 13% in the state, and 11% in Baltimore County. My friends in wheelchairs with other mobility or sight issues, the deaf, the aged, we can all register to vote and cast our votes using technology and mail-in voting. We can submit our tax returns online. We can visit our doctors and have our vital statistics monitored without physical interaction. Engineers and architects submit their plans electronically. Attorneys submit their pleadings online. And you have just certified the primary results with the aid of technology. For these reasons, I urge the board to revisit their earlier decision and to allow electronic signatures for ballot petitions. Thank you for your time.
definitely appreciate your comments and your testimony. Is there any questions for Ms. Richkus that any board member has? Also, if we wanted to hear the testimony of all three, and if you had any questions, you could do so at that time if you preferred, but is there any questions at this time?
Yeah, I'm thinking if they're all on the same topic for efficiency's sake, Mr. Chair, I maybe have all the speakers talk and then we can
Sure.
ask questions.
Yep, I am absolutely fine with that. Thank you very much. Who is our next speaker on this same topic?
I'll go next. This is Linda Dorsey Walker. Good morning. First, I want to express my condolences to the board and to the family of a civil rights scion, Mr. Malcolm Funn, on his passing. His imprint will be missed on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, I am sure. Today, I come before you as a private citizen, although I am a 7-term elected member of the Baltimore County Democratic State Central Committee. I come before you as a private citizen who chairs the Full More for Baltimore County Ballot Issue Committee, a group that now includes more than 30 partnering organizations. I wish to testify in support of using electronic or digital signatures for completion of ballot issue petitions. We're requesting that you seriously consider reversing today your earlier position that electronic signatures need only be made available strictly during a state of emergency COVID situation and no other time, because that's the only time you said that it was being utilized. We were tasked at the outset with collecting for the last 5 months, 10,000 certified signatures, face-to-face petition signatures by August 1st in order to get the referendum question added to the November 22 general election ballot, principally for one reason. We had to do that because of the decision not to allow electronic signatures. The State Board of Elections previously approved digital collection of signatures needed for petitions in 2020 and 2021. Now, as a result of not having reached that August 1st, 2022 date, we must aim for 2024 general election ballot. Some of the main arguments in favor of the State Board of Elections immediately reversing their earlier position on the use of electronic signatures are as follows. On January 27th, we were advised by you all to collect in-person signatures at shopping malls, churches, subways, community meetings, fairs, events, and do door knocking, door to door. More than one member stated that collecting in-person signatures in today's environment was no more difficult than campaigning door to door. Multiple members said all you had to do was find a legislator to introduce a bill. That would be easy enough. We were told that having a deadline of August 1st was more than sufficient time to gather the 10,000 signatures needed to get the initiative on the November 22 ballot. Now, 5 months after kicking off our ballot initiative and 5 months after following every single suggestion that you made, we felt it was very important to come back to you all as the board respectfully to give you a reality check. We tried everything you said. We knocked on thousands of doors that were not opened. We scheduled multiple shifts of volunteers and set up booths to work at fairs and festivals that got rained out over and over again. We have tried to schedule various events and hookups with various churches and community meetings with community groups, only to find out that maybe fewer than 1/10 of their original members are still coming to those meetings, and some are still not meeting in person yet. Also, let me first tell you this. At the end of that meeting, you all left with the impression that we needed to collect 10,000 signatures. That's not what we were told on day one. On day one, we were told that we had to collect 25 to 30% more signatures. In other words, 12,500 to 13,000 signatures, not 10,000. Because we were told you all routinely disallow those many names, or at least they are disallowed, not you particular. This is the history we were told. It means that from the outset, the process was made 25 to 30% more cumbersome, arduous, time-consuming, and expensive than you were given the impression it would be. Even after we added a QR code to our flyer that goes along with the petition, we were nevertheless told to expect to have to collect all those same names anyway, because it's our history of disallowing. And that I didn't understand, because shouldn't the process have been shortened? What we want you to understand is that many, many people are very, very fearful of providing their unique identifiers. Now, what we had to do when we set up our ballot issue committee, went on to the site, provided demographic information, and then on page 3, it said, you can provide your electronic signature. That would be either the last 4 digits of your social security number, your Maryland license, driver's license number, or your voter's card number. The software application took seconds to verify who each one of us were. And then it said, now that you have been verified with your information with the State Board of Elections record, you can proceed to the next page. That is very similar to what we're talking about now. We're talking about allowing average citizens to have the right to have the petition come to them electronically, fill out the necessary 5 questions, or 4 questions would be required then submit it electronically. You all would instantly verify whether they are or are not whom they are. And guess what it would do? It would save thousands of dollars of staff time, because then your staff at the local level would not have to go through each one of those 10,000 to 13,000 names. On January 27th, members of the board said all kinds of things that they thought might go wrong. Maybe there might be nefarious people from foreign countries. Maybe there might be fraud. But no one said that when you first implemented it in 2020 and 21, there were no accusations of fraud. No, there was no clamor to force every person to sign in person. And there were no disabled people saying we felt that our rights were disrespected by a demand that we burn shoe leather.
So I'm just asking, you could wrap up. We're at about 8 minutes into your presentation. We allowed about 4. So can you wrap up your presentation, please?
Sure. What I want to say is this. At the last meeting, in the January meeting, one of your members, Miss Woodward, Sky Woodward, at the end, I was so appreciative of her making a statement. She said that if things should change, it was the expectation then that the state of emergency would be eliminated, that COVID would go away. And guess what? It didn't go away. The rates started escalating again. And now we're dealing with monkeypox, a situation in which people have to touch all those clipboards that we've been using, the pens that we use, the papers that we use. That is very dangerous, not only to petition circulators, but also to those individuals signing it, handling it. All we're asking is that you rethink this, not just for 4 more, and definitely not just because of COVID, but because the technology exists. You all just gave yourselves the right to handle this very important legal process electronically. And all these folks that we've been dealing with for months have said, Linda, go back to them again. They're listening right now. They are listening right now, as well as members of the media, to see if you will take the time to reconsider that maybe because the state law does charge you with coming up with new technologies and implementing it to assure people's rights to electoral process easier, we're asking that you'll do that right now. And I want to thank you for letting me go over time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. And before I open it up for comments, I think we all agreed that we would hear from all three speakers. So I believe there's one more. Is that third speaker available?
Hello.
Yes, and I
Good,
just
thank you.
remind you that not if we could, you don't have to repeat the things that have been said. You have about 4 minutes is what we usually allot for speakers. So if you could try to keep to that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. I will certainly respect your request to be brief. Appreciate the excellent comments made by the first speaker, Ms. Smithers, the second speaker, Ms. Linda Dorsey Walker. I am Aaron Plymouth, a Baltimore County resident since 1985, and a registered voter since 1986 in Baltimore County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I too am offering condolences to Mr. Malcolm Funn, whom I did not know personally, but am aware of his exemplary reputation and service throughout the years, and also as your vice chair. So just a little background about me. I served as vice president of the Baltimore County Board of Elections from June 2007 to May 31st, 2011, during which time I met Ms. Mamone many times. Additionally, I served as chair of the Baltimore County School Board Nominating Commission from October 1st, 2017 to September 30th, 2021, and as one of 5 commissioners on the Baltimore County Redistricting Commission from March 2021 to October 15, 2021. During that time, the commission had to follow the Baltimore County Charter, which did not and does not allow for the addition or removal of county districts. So it was quite difficult for us in Challenge 2 because we knew about the population expansion that occurred since 1955, but the charter says we couldn't do it. So when I heard and found out about Vote for More for Baltimore County Council, I joined Linda Dorsey Walker's committee or council with permission of an organization for which I serve as chair. It's called the Combined Communities Advocacy Council of Greater Renaissance Incorporated, which is a 501c4 organization, which is the umbrella organization that comprised of 11 community associations and over 3,000 households. And so they gave me permission to join the ballot commission and to represent that organization. As stated earlier, the in-person collection of signatures was quite difficult. So I'm going to now go ahead and jump to why I am here right now. And today I am respectfully requesting you to engage in courageous conversations about our efforts. And while you engage in it, please do it with a measure of empathy as you review the Maryland state law regarding your right to modernize your oversight of elections and the use of modern technologies in order to make the collection of signatures of local charter amendments more user-friendly and more easily accessible to all registered voters who wish to participate in the privacy of their own homes. So again, I thank you for your consideration, and out of respect to you and your time, I shortened my presentation as for your request. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your kindness and consideration. Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to now open it up for any questions or comments from the board.
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
just have a comment. Maybe I'll lead off with a comment, then maybe someone can address it from one of the speakers. So I I guess I got the impression that Miss Dorsey Walker found us, I hope we weren't flippant, or I didn't mean to convey a flippant attitude in the January discussion, if that was that was how the comments were taken. I think generally this is interest. There's a balancing here of factors to make it like the shoe leather requirement to get petition signatures seems worthy to me insofar as if it were too easy to get on a petition or any item to be petitioned to a ballot, we would be inundated with issues. And so that balancing seems like it could be better achieved by the legislature. And so being, I guess, taking notice of the fact that they didn't act, and maybe the question is, Ms. Dorsey Walker, you mentioned that you attempted to do the legislative effort. Can you give a little more color about how that
Yes.
failed or how that it worked?
I'm sorry, I forgot to, I was about to say that when you were saying time was an issue. Yes, we did do that. We listened to what you said. We went to Delegate Sheila Ruth, who introduced a piece of legislation that was heard on March 1st. She had got something very unusual, which was the right to, if it had been passed, have it go into effect on June 1st. Very unusual. So we were very excited. She spoke, I spoke, people from the Maryland Disability Law Center, they spoke, and sort of like with the January 27th meeting, no one had any questions, no one had any comments. And so we waited to see what would happen when it went from the Ways and Means Committee over to the Election Subcommittee. And guess what? Despite me calling on a regular basis, people kept saying, it looks like your bill is going to go nowhere. How was that decided? Who decided our bill should go nowhere? And indeed, it went nowhere. It never went to crossover. It never got voted up or down. It just got pocketed. That was it. And so now there are people who are very, very upset about that, because on top of trying to get it done, first of all, I've reviewed all of the Maryland election law regarding this. There is no, and also your bylaws, there is nothing that says that you cannot legally do what you've done in the past. In fact, you don't even have to just do it on an emergency basis. You can, without the legislature's permission, because you're supposed to be an autonomous body, not a stepchild of the legislature. So if you are indeed an autonomous body, that should never have been something that needed to be brought up. You have the ability to change it the way you already have twice. Only this time, could you please, not just for us, but for other entities that might want to come along that have the need to get a amendment through or a ballot initiative through, please consider allowing, not as the only option, please be clear, we're not asking for it to be allowed as the only option, but in addition to in-person signatures, the right to do it electronically, because we do know that there are many poor people that don't have computers or printers. We also know that there are a lot of other individuals that don't have very high levels of computer skills. So in addition to collecting signatures in person, if individuals wish, because of privacy reasons, to do it that route, I think we should respect their privacy, because there are people who told me, I would sign your petition, but you know, I've had some credit situations in the past. I would sign your petition, but I've got a divorce situation going on with ex-spouse, and I don't know what's going to happen with my address if I give you my information. So it may seem unreasonable for people to feel that way, but those are things that people have actually said.
Thank you very much for your answer. Are there any other board members with questions, or are there any comments from the board or thoughts?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. And I apologize if there's some connection issues. I'm on vacation in Europe and joining this meeting with less than ideal communication abilities. Are we being asked to vote on something? I mean, I absolutely respect the time of our speakers and that this has come up, but personally, I would have preferred a little bit of a heads up if this is something that we are being expected to vote on right now in this meeting.
We are not. We are not.
Okay.
So to be clear, this was testimony. We were dealing with lots of other issues as we went through. There was some testimony from Mrs. Dorsey Walker in the past, and they felt like there was some information we didn't have, and so we grouped them together to testify today. There is no motion on the floor. That would need to come from one of the 4 board members. And that's where we stand, is just testimony at this point under new business.
Okay. All right. I will hang tight then. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments or anything else from anyone on the board? And we can certainly, if you'd like to have further discussion about this, I'm happy to have any of you either now or subsequent to reach out to place that under. At that point, it would be old business on a future meeting, or if there's no comments, then we would close this out at this time.
I do have one. I have one more question, if I may.
Yeah.
Is there anything about this issue of the signatures that there's been testimony about that is time sensitive vis-a-vis the general election?
I'm not sure that any action that we take now could impact fast enough, especially if it would impact Comar in any way that would impact signatures for the general election. Am I wrong about that? If somebody on the staff could answer that for me.
So the petition effort for candidates has passed, as well as the need for charter amendments. So all for the general election, this is a moot topic.
So this would be something that would affect the next election after that, which would be
It would be 2024. So
2024
yes.
presidential cycle. So, great question, Sky. Thank you very much. Justin, were you getting ready to say something?
Yeah, just another comment. I appreciate the speaker's position and I understand where they're coming from. I guess I do have, I don't want to prolong this meeting, but I guess I did think there was some ability to do an online petition collection. I recall from the mdpetitions.com from like a decade ago being an option for I guess if that were something for safety, security. But yeah, given that the less of the time crunch, I do think my stays in my position that this should be a legislative issue to consider the pros and cons of where to set the line or the threshold for the shoe leather requirement to make something that's worthy of being on a charter amendment for the ballot discussion. I do think it's worth the legislature exploring that, but that's where my position is. I think it's defensible in 2020 before I was on this board to make an emergency exception in the beginning of COVID. But at this point, I guess now it's kind of a moot point for the 2022 election calendar. But the fact that there are large crowds gathering is, means that there is some ability to collect signatures, and other initiatives have been successful. So just putting that out there, my position.
Great. Any other questions, comments? I think I'll close out that with that I thank all 3 speakers very much, and I'm actually sympathetic to what you're asking for, and not due to pandemic. I think that it would be a good thing to move in that direction, but I concur with Mr. Williams that I would like to first hear from the legislature. I think that it should originate there. And I would say that I would be more apt to look at this, if there was a consensus on the board, had the legislature does not act in the next session. So have something prepared for the 24 that the board could do if it was in the will of the board, if the legislature did not act. But I would, ask that the legislature look at this issue and come down on a side. And if they don't, I would be very open to what this looked like for the 24 election personally, so I cannot speak for the whole board. But any other comments from the board? Seeing none, is there any other new business? Thank you very much to our speakers. Seeing no other new business, let's disclosure of campaign contributions. I'd like to do that and schedule the next meeting before the reports, just in case we lose Sky. So are there any disclosure of campaign contributions?
I have a disclosure, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I have two campaign contributions to disclose. One is out of state. I don't know if that's necessary to disclose, but I'll provide it for full transparency. I made a $250 contribution to the campaign of Jim Obergefell, Obergefell, for a position in the state of Ohio. Obergefell for Ohio.
Great.
My other campaign contribution was $100 to the campaign of Heather Mazier for Congress.
Great. Any other contributions to report? Seeing none, the scheduling of the next meeting. Let's do that next. So that would normally be, I believe, the 22nd of September. My question to the staff is that I believe that is the date of the Mayo convention. Is that something we would like to move then?
That would be great. Thank you, because many of us will be involved in that.
Right, I'm going to be there that morning as well. So we would then need to move the date from the 22nd. Is there a staff recommendation for the date of the next election, of the next meeting?
How about the 29th?
So you'd like to move it back to the 29th. That works for me. How about the other members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, it's if I have more of a late afternoon conflict on the 29th. As
Okay.
long as we are finished, even with any closed session by about 4:30, I can make it work. 4:45 probably at the latest.
Would the staff be okay starting 1 o'clock that day to accommodate that?
I have a potential conflict if there's a better day. I could maybe make that work, but would prefer a different day.
Okay,
That's feasible.
does not have to be a Thursday. Would, if the staff would like to have it be the week after the 22nd, would Wednesday, the 28th work for everyone?
Works for me.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the 28th would work for me as well.
How about the staff?
Would work for me as well.
Does that date work for the staff? 28th September, it's a Wednesday, 1 o'clock. I'm proposing 1 o'clock instead of 2 to hopefully end at a reasonable time again.
Okay with me. Nikki?
That
Okay.
Yep, mine
We
too.
are-
Thank you.
We are set for Wednesday, the 28th at 1 p.m., September 28th at 1 p.m.
Okay.
So that is done. So now what I'd like to do is move back to the administrator's report. Which is normally early in the meeting, so.
Okay, well, thank you. The The bulk of the administrator's report this time is highlights from the primary election. There's a lot of information in there. I'll just highlight a few things. And just note that we will be doing, as we did in both elections in 2020, is to provide a full written report. So this will be the foundation for that, but we'll be adding lots more information. So I guess these are just highlights because we, as you know, haven't quite finished the election yet. I know you all certified today, but there's still a fair amount of work left to be done. And so we will be working on that report coming up. So I'll just highlight a few things. I think all of us were really wondering what a July election would look like. And it turns out that we had good turnout when compared to prior gubernatorial primary elections. There's lots of numbers in there and more numbers on our press room. And so I will just jump down to the recounts. That's what everyone seems to be interested in now. And then if there are questions, we can certainly go back up. So as we expected, there are some close races and we have one recount done and a couple pending. So the first one that's done is Harford County, which was completed a couple weeks ago and there was no change. Tomorrow, there will be a recount for Frederick County Council District 3. That election was initially decided by 3 votes. And in preparing for the recount, the Frederick County Board of Elections discovered a discrepancy in the number of votes in the certified results and the number of accepted mail-in and provisional ballots. So that discovery triggered a larger review. And ultimately, they found that there were about 100 ballots that were scanned more than once and 4 provisional ballots that were not presented at a canvass. And so last week, the Frederick County Board of Elections met to decertify those election results. And then with the support of other local boards, rescanned something like 16,000 ballots in one day. It was quite an impressive operation. And we provided some additional, well, Howard County provided the equipment. We used our transportation vendor to move the equipment from Howard to Frederick so they could use equipment that they hadn't used in the election. And when after rescanning all of the mail-in and provisional ballots, the margin of difference between the 2 candidates was 1. So that triggered a recount. That didn't trigger, I'm sorry. We don't have automatic recount. It allowed the candidate with the second most votes to request a recount. It was free because it was in 0.25%. And that is the recount that is scheduled for tomorrow. We've also received recounts requests for 2 House of Delegate districts, so Democratic nominations in Legislative District 23 and 24. Those are both solely within Prince George's County. They are preparing for those recounts, and I believe they are scheduled to start next week sometime. That triggering act is your all certification today. But we've already received actually those petitions, and the Prince George's County Board of Elections is preparing for those recounts. Finding a new space to do them and getting all the ballots ready.
I had a question, if I could. Nikki, is that what type of recount are they doing in Frederick County? Is it hand or is it scanned?
So in Frederick County, it is a manual recount of the paper ballots.
Of just that one race?
Of that one race, the County Council District 3, the candidate with the second highest votes has requested a manual recount of paper ballots.
Thank you.
Then the last recount that we are certainly expecting is the Montgomery County Executive Contest, which has been well covered in the media. And that recount is expected to start on the 18th, which I think is Thursday, and will continue for several days until they're done. It's obviously it's a countywide office, so it's a lot of ballots to count or recount. And right now the vote difference is 35. So we will be supporting those recounts how best we can. The local boards that don't have recounts are, as always, they are stepping up to help their colleagues and providing bodies and help where they can to support those recounts. And I'd just like to relay our gratitude for the partnership that exists among all these local boards. And when one of them needs them, others step in and provide the help that they need. So I will just pause here. If there's anything that anybody else on the SB team wants to highlight for theirs, or if the board has any questions before we move into what I guess the more traditional administrator's report.
Board have any questions up to this point? And I would ask, as we move into the traditional report, highlights are fine. We have the written reports here. Seeing no questions, we can move into the traditional report.
Okay, Melissa, did you want to highlight?
Sure. We have some of our more specific efforts outlined in the report. I would say the two big things, we got a really big boost from DBM offering additional leave to state employees. We had them coming in even at the last minute to volunteer to be election judges, and were able to place them less than 24 hours before the election, which was pretty impressive. And then tomorrow, EAC has declared Help America Vote Day. We'll be participating in that, as well as many of the local election boards, to get the word out to help drive people to volunteer to be poll workers and election judges. So those are the two big things. And then I can turn it over to Mary.
Question though, Mr. Chair, about the DBM thing. So was that a one-time decision that DBM made for this specific election?
They did it last year as well. And this year they've done it for the primary. They did it for the primary, unclear as to whether it'll be taking place for the general.
Is there, so it strikes me as a good idea. So is there something that could be done to make it a permanent process or determination, or I guess something like a longer term thing that people could use to plan ahead?
Right. I think that is inevitably, I believe, the decision of the director of DBM to make. So I know that we've been talking with them about what that might look like going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I really don't have anything to highlight. I've got everything in the report, but I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for Mary Wagner? Seeing none, who's next?
That would be me. So my highlights are that now the only way to become a candidate in the state of Maryland is to be a write-in candidate, and you do not have to file a certificate of candidacy in person to be a write-in candidate. So you can mail us the certificate of candidacy that is notarized. On campaign finance, our next report is due on August 30th. So, notices are sent out to everyone there. But I also wanted to highlight that this is the first time that this law, though passed a couple of years ago, this is the first time this law is being enforced, is that Election Law Article 13-332.1 requires any of the primary winners that, they have to make sure that they're in complete compliance in order to advance to the general election. If they have a failure to file or fail to pay any late fees by tomorrow, which is the deadline to withdraw or decline the nomination, then by them not rectifying that failure to file, they would be deemed to have declined the nomination and will not appear on the general election ballot. The central committees will then be able to fill the vacancies created by the declinations. All the candidates have been notified, and we are making sure we're taking the payments now over the phone, and there's only a handful that remain outstanding. And both political parties have been notified. The central committees have been notified of the delinquent individuals as well. So I just wanted to make sure that aware of that. And then the other part on the public financing, the gubernatorial ticket that we received public financing did not win. So now we're going to create County and Howard's programs are still ongoing, and those candidates, a lot of candidates have advanced.
we're losing your audio, Jared.
Oh, okay, then it was just, and then I also just have my latest enforcement actions and open it up for questions if there isn't any. If not, I'll pass it over to Keith.
I have two questions. Number
Sure.
one, what about a candidate that may have a late fee or something, but has filed for a waiver?
Well, luckily, we just did all the waivers there.
Okay.
But if not, and they didn't have it, then basically we tell them to pay it. If the waiver is granted later on, then we issue them a refund through the process. We've done that in the past.
Okay.
So,
And number two, on the write-in candidate, what is the deadline? Because I know we only count votes of write-in candidates that have filed to be a write-in candidate. What is the deadline to send that letter in to be a write-in candidate for the election?
1 week before early voting starts.
Thank you. Any other questions?
A question, Mr. Chair, and maybe this is a longer discussion, 'cause I remember there was discussion about the Baker campaign with public financing and those issues raised by, I guess, I don't know if he officially suspended the campaign or what he was thinking.
Right.
So is there ongoing, I guess, discussion and policy decision that have to be?
I believe that there will be some legislative action on that, to help rectify that situation there, or if not, I'll be looking at developing some good regulations. I've been doing some research into New York City and the other programs as well, Maine, Connecticut, Arizona, to see how they've handled this situation. It was kind of unique. A lot of them were the idea that a candidate was possibly, suspending campaigns and still trying to be active and still, there was a lot of moving parts that most likely that it wasn't necessarily used or thought of from the other states, but I've reached out to my counterparts to kind of come up with an idea on that.
And then is there, so like for the county public financing candidates who, I guess, lost, are there rules or regulations about them? Can they engage in?
Yes, so they have to now shut down their campaigns. The ones, all 5 in Howard County advanced, so they're not getting this. But the ones in Montgomery County, they're currently getting a letter from the county saying if they had any leftover funds, that they have to remit it back to the Department of Finance, and then subsequently close out their committee at that point. Then they can either go back into the traditional method, not, or just not have a campaign. Enjoy themselves.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Keith Ross. And before you have the report of the project management office and some of its efforts. If you have any questions, I'm willing to entertain them at this time.
Any questions?
Since you're here, sorry, I always see the line item about the Baltimore City relocation and that we're assisting. Is that just, is there a date for that? Just curious. I don't have to get into what detailed, but.
Well, we're attempting by, prior to the presidential election, so around December 15th, 2023, to have them into a new facility. But it has been a challenge, and been looking through a number of alternatives with them, and they come and go. So that's where we are with that right now. But we are coming to a point when we have to have a decision. Otherwise, they have to wait till after the election.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great. Anything else under the report? Seeing nothing, we will move to the Assistant Attorney General's report. And thank you very much for the administrator's report and our illustrious Assistant Attorney General.
I will keep this succinct because there's now only 4 cases that we are actively monitoring. SB is actually not named as a defendant in any of them currently. On the report, you'll see cases 2 and 3, Winred v. Ellison and Baltimore County branch of the NAACP v. Baltimore County. There are no changes in either case since the last report. WinRed is still waiting to schedule oral arguments. NAACP v. Baltimore County is on attorney's fees, and that should be wrapped up by September 6th. So by the next meeting, that case should be wrapped up. The other case that's on the list from last time in the matter of Seth Wilson, that actually had a hearing this morning. My colleague James Lewis attended and argued on behalf of SBE. That case was dismissed. The Circuit Court for Anne Arundel County dismissed the case on a number of grounds. Mr. Wilson will have the opportunity to appeal, and we'll be monitoring to see if he does. And finally, the new case on the list is Keegan Iyer v. DeCola et al. That is a suit filed in Frederick County regarding the District 3 council seat. The plaintiff sued the defendant alleging that she was not qualified to be the council person for District 3 because of a residency challenge. On Friday the 12th, the Circuit Court in Frederick County ordered that Ms. DeCola was disqualified and not permitted to advance to the general election through the nomination process. Ms. DeCola has until the 17th, so until Wednesday, to appeal that ruling to the Court of Appeals. That's all.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the job that you're doing on our behalf. That's very much appreciated. Any questions for the Assistant Attorney General? Seeing none, I don't believe there's any other current business. Is there a motion to adjourn? There's been a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those favors signify by raising your hand. We've lost Sky, so we could do no normal business, but I believe we can adjourn. So we are hereby adjourned, and we will see you all at the next meeting, if not before. Thank you.